investment banking, especially.
2 years ago, I was on this stage. I think it was like October. And I was really burnt out, like a lot of entrepreneurs get really burnt out. And I was in the process of making changes in my life. I knew something had to change. And so I was moving from Silicon Valley. I was doing a lot of stuff to change my life, but it was too late, basically. When I had moved, the first week that I had relocated to Miami, I found a lump in my breast. And I started, it was probably like a year and a half journey of going through 6 rounds of chemo with 4 different drugs, 22 radiation treatments, and a surgery. And at that time, I obviously had a lot of time to reflect on life, on business, on what I really wanted in life. And that's what I want to share here with you guys today. I don't want you to have to go get cancer or get sick or anything to be able to really create a life that's sustainable for you, especially as entrepreneurs. So this word revival is like a reoccurring theme when I was going through my cancer treatments. I don't know why. I think I was reading something and it just kind of popped out to me. And it is very, it's on point. It's a restoration to life, consciousness, vigor, and strength. And I think as entrepreneurs, we're all familiar with the hustle. We're all familiar with having to be strong, with having to figure it out. But what happens when you have a life-changing circumstance like getting cancer or anything else? You really have to revisit your life, and what ends up happening is the new person that you become, because it really feels like you become a new person, it feels like a revival. Your health is something that you miss. When I was going through my treatments, I didn't think about business at all, like not once. In fact, emotionally, I had resented business a little bit. I don't even really think that I've ever said that out loud publicly. But when you're working so hard and you're giving so much of yourself and you're investing so much of yourself into other people, the only thing you really want when you're in a situation like going through cancer treatments is your health. At one point, I had a side effect from the chemo where my leg muscles got really, really stiff. I could barely walk. I had to go to physical therapy basically to strengthen my muscles all over again. And I remember looking out the window one day and just watching people go about their business. They woke up in the morning, they're walking on the street, they got their backpacks, their purses, their whatever. And I was so jealous. I really wanted that. Also my family. That's what I thought about a lot. My kids. I really, to be honest, I thought about scenarios where things would go good. If things go good, if things go great, how do I want my life to be moving forward? If things go bad, how do I want my life to be? And I think as a mother, and then also as a business person, it allowed me to detach emotionally from the situation, but really plan what I wanted my life to be like, especially during a time where I felt like I had accomplished a lot. I mean, at the time, I think we had helped folks raise, at the time, close to $20 million. Now it's a little over $28 million. But I felt like I had control over my life. But this was a reminder that I really didn't. And of course, my business. There's a lot I could say here, but I'm just going to say, I think we get locked into doing things a certain way. And when you realize that you have a limited amount of time, you really start to do things differently. You start to think about how you can invest your time in a really meaningful way. And I'm gonna dig more into time in 1 second. Okay, so time. It is really the only true luxury. I deal with entrepreneurs every day, and I always ask them, so what's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? Oh, I want to be acquired. I want to IPO, or I just want to make billions of dollars. And a lot of the goals that entrepreneurs tend to have tend to be based on what material things, like what they can accomplish materially. And while I was going through chemo, I started writing a book. One of the chapters in my book it's exclusively about time. And I talk about basically how you invest your time. What is the ROI on what you're putting your time into? Thinking about time from a business perspective. And what are you chasing after? So what I ended up realizing is some of the things that we tend to think we're chasing after, so money, success, notoriety, that's not really what we're looking for. What's that feeling beyond that, right? So if you think you're looking for money, more money, are you really looking for some kind of comfort, right? Are you really looking for some kind of freedom? If success to you is notoriety, are you really just looking to be appreciated, right? So what is that emotion that goes above and beyond the superficial things that we tend to think we're chasing as business people? So those two things basically help me prioritize my life, and I feel like they'll help you prioritize your life too. So of course, when I identified what I was really chasing, and then of course when I also realized that time is a limited thing. And it's interesting, when I started as an entrepreneur, I was 26. So I was young, and as a young entrepreneur, you don't think about death. You don't think about sickness. You don't think about things like that at all. And this is a reminder that we all really do have a limited amount of time here. So how are you going to invest your time? Now, so before, how I used to invest my time, it was the more I could do, the better. If I had to stay up late, if I had to wake up early and just drink coffee, that was my life. I was in the mode of like go, 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 doing what I had to do to become successful and to reach my goals. Now, I really take a long look at the things that I want to do. Do I really want to invest my time? What am I chasing? Is this actually helping me get closer to the life that I want to live, right? A life of freedom, happiness. If it's not, then I don't invest my time in it. And it really gives you a sense of freedom to even begin to think about things that way. But everybody can do this. So you don't really just have to go through a life-changing event like cancer. You can do this now. Okay, girls, I debated whether to even put this slide in. Relationships matter. And a lot of people don't talk about relationships as it relates to entrepreneurship. Relationships are so important because entrepreneurship is lonely. And usually when we think about relationships with entrepreneurship, we think about mentors, we think about advisors, we think about things like that. But no, girl, you gotta get you a boo or a husband or whatever you wanna call him or her. They're important too. So I really had to acknowledge that relationships matter. And, you know, as someone who is a strong Black woman who can do it all on her own, that was something that was missing in my life. You know, I was a mother, 3 girls, and I was successful in business, and my personal relationships certainly sacrificed. And I really feel like now that I have more balance in my personal life, now I can see the difference between actually unplugging and recharging. And I had to make, one of the things, I made a list when I was going through all of my cancer stuff. Okay, this is how I want my life to be. And one of the things was relationships. And I had to really work for it and put effort into it. It wasn't just going to happen. It wasn't just, going to appear out of the blue. So when I started being deliberate about the relationships that I wanted in my life, what's interesting is you think this has nothing to do with business, but the dynamic in my business relationships changed also. So now I was more comfortable asking for the things that I deserved. I walked away from very, very big partnerships that really didn't see the value that I was bringing to the table. And I would not have been able to get there had I not started really investing in my personal happiness and the relationships that I had around me, and also getting rid of toxic and negative relationships. Hustle expires. So I talked about this a little bit before, and for a while there in startup culture, this was like a negative thing. Like to say that you are not gonna hustle, and to say that, no, I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock, because I really do go to bed at 9 o'clock every day. But to say that was frowned upon, oh, you're not staying up till 5 o'clock in the morning, you're not doing X, Y, Z. And hustle just expires. It's not sustainable. If you are serious about being an entrepreneur, and this is where you see your career going for the long term, then this whole kind of hustle mentality, it's not sustainable at all. You have to put up boundaries between how much you're willing to work so that you can be in it for the long haul. So now I have more, obviously, a much more balanced way of looking at how I work, and then also how I take care of myself. Prioritizing my physical health, obviously, but also my mental and emotional health. What I didn't realize is before I got diagnosed with cancer, I was a healthy person. I had my green juice, I did my juice cleanses, that was my life. I worked out, but I had unhealthy patterns in my life as a whole. And so now I prioritize my physical, mental, and my emotional health, because all of that stuff will drain you. And that stuff will really, it will affect your physical health in ways that you really can't imagine. Another thing that I started doing after cancer was making mindful to-do lists. And so, we're all busy. I was very scared of this sustainable lifestyle that I had developed. Once I start getting back into the swing of things of work, what if I'm not able to maintain it? That was a real concern of mine. And so I came up with mindful to-do lists, which I basically remind myself to do the things that I know that are important to me, like call my mom. If I feel a little weird, and it's probably because I haven't talked to my family, right? And I've been too much in my own head, and I'm on my computer too much. So those are one of the things that I put on my mindful to-do list. And it's split into a personal category and a business category. All my business stuff is the usual stuff that you would put on, your business to-do list, but your personal to-do list is actually what's really important. These are the things that are necessary for you, but they need to be written down. You need to be reminded to do these things. So, we got about 15 minutes. I want to answer questions, but my big thing and my big takeaway from going through this life-changing experience is life is short, and don't waste your time on just building a business, and build a life. Thank you. Somebody have a mic? We have a question down here.
Thank you so much. My name is Hillary Black, and I came here to just be inspired, to be honest with you, for a multitude of reasons. But I, too, am a breast cancer survivor.
Yes, girl.
And I was diagnosed last year. And so for me, the thing that you talked about that made the most sense is like this feeling of living between, am I going to live? Am I not going to live?
Yep.
I plan on living. I
Yes.
too have young children. But really it's about this feeling of like, oh, I have to leave a legacy behind. And I don't think you need to have cancer to have that feeling. Like, I think everyone in this room has this feeling of like drive, which is very much relatable to people going through like mortality issues. I just think all of us in this room are probably extremely like go-getting, like want to get things done, want to make things happen, and we feel like we're in this limited amount of time. And then yes, you throw this C thing on top of it, and it creates this feeling of like, well, what's this thing I'm going to leave behind? What's my purpose?
Yes.
And so I think that that's the interesting part. But you talked about going to bed on time and making sure you take, you know, my business partner always tells me, like, don't stay up until 1 o'clock in the morning. Nothing's going to, like, you're not changing the world.
It's still going to be
there.
there.
We're not brain surgeons. We're not cancer, you know, doctors. Like, we're not doing that. But I wonder how you have found a way to create those boundaries. Are there any specific little tiny tools or anything so you don't feel like you have to try to conquer the world and make things happen overnight?
So, first off, love your hairdo. We have the same hairdo going on. So, first off, I feel like when you are facing mortality issues, the idea of leaving a legacy is magnified. Because I feel that. I share that with you. I really do. And in terms of things that I do, it was, like I said earlier, it was very scary to me to go. I'm scared of going back to the life that I had. I don't want to go back to that life, right? And so it's a constant reminder for me, and I have been able to just put balances in place. Like, of course, there are some days, like when we have accelerators going on, where like I'm at the office like 15 hours, right? But I'm not doing that every day. And a part of my schedule, like before, you know, the business that I'm in, it's mission driven, right? So you feel like you're changing the world and you're helping other people. But I read something, I think it was in the Harvard Business Review, that talked about social enterprises and how the founders of social enterprises, they end up giving so much to their businesses, right? And so to me, I feel like I had to become confident in what I've already accomplished, right? So I'm now very confident in what I've already accomplished, and that gives me some space to say, okay, well, I didn't get accomplished what I wanted to get accomplished this week, but I have next week. Or, you know, there's Monday. Because before, I'd be like, oh, it's Friday, like, I'll just work on it tomorrow, over the weekend. I don't do that anymore. I really don't. I prioritize myself. That was my biggest lesson in getting cancer, is I was not prioritizing myself at all. Next question.
Like I said earlier, I'm from Houston, and it has been devastated by Harvey. And one of the biggest challenges in kind of getting back to work is focusing on things that really feel inconsequential in the face of all of this true devastation.
Right.
So really you kind of had the same experience of like, do you really care about the spreadsheet when you've had this incredible experience? Can you talk a little bit about how those small things, you were able to elevate them and re-engage?
Sure. So I can totally relate to that too. Everything, when I started getting back to work, everything felt really stupid, to be honest. Like, this doesn't really matter to my life. But I think when you go through something that's devastating, you also have to allow yourself time to heal. And I didn't rush into getting back to work. I took my time, and that's not to say that, you know, financially I had the space to do that. I just made decisions where I changed the way that I worked. I worked less, but I made more. And I only started to think this way after, you know, going through cancer. Also, I allow myself to be supported way more. And before everything, I pretty much did everything myself. Even though I had a team, it was, I don't know, it's something about being type A. If somebody doesn't do it right, you just pick it up and finish it for them, right? But now I have a much more thoughtful and slower pace. And even if there are things that need to be done, like a spreadsheet or something, and I don't want to do them, then I allow other people to support me. I find the resources that I need so that I can be supported and it can still get done.